everybody, welcome to Bella Vista Farm. I'm Anne Marie Bellella. I'm the farmer, the baker, and the medicine maker here at the farm. And I wanted to do a little video for you showing you how to make infused vinegars using wild weeds and flowers that are out in your yard. So let's get started. First, what I want to do is a violet vinegar. Violets are these beautiful purple blooms that are coming up right now in the south in the springtime. It's not quite spring, cold spring I call it, but they make a beautiful vinegar. And I did a vinegar the other day. It's only about 3 days old, but this is it right here, and it's so pretty. It's like pinkish, fuchsia, magenta actually. And I infused this one in a white wine vinegar, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. So this one's going to sit for probably another week or so, but I wanted to show you what it will look like after a few days. So we're going to start with that one. And before I do get started with that, I want to talk about a couple of vinegars. The first vinegar is the white wine vinegar used for the violets. The white wine vinegar that I use is an Italian white wine vinegar. Don't confuse this with the distilled vinegar. That is not the same thing. Save the distilled vinegar for using for cleaning, but the white wine vinegar has a little bit more flavor. You could also use a white balsamic vinegar. Most of my vinegars are used, or made with, I should say, apple cider vinegar, because it's raw. It has a lot of probiotics and benefits to itself. But with the violets, I wanted to have something a little bit more clear and pure. So this vinegar will be more of a finishing vinegar that you can use for salad dressings, or if you really wanted to, you could put this in a pot after you strain it out, add a little bit of sugar, and make a syrup and use it in some cocktails. So let's get started. We have a jar, and when you do make any kind of vinegars, using wild weeds, using flowers, make sure everything is clean as possible. Your hands, your jars, because you don't want to add any unwanted bacteria into your vinegars. You work hard for this. So I'm using just a small 8-ounce canning jar here, and you're going to fill your jar about halfway full of violets. And violets are not only pretty, they are medicinal as well. The violet flowers and the violet leaves are good for the lymphatic system. So anything that comes up in the springtime tends to be good for the liver and the lymphatic system. So you could also candy these if you like and put them on top of a cake. You just take a little bit of egg white, or if you don't want to use egg white, you can use meringue powder and water. And you just brush it on top of these flowers, add a little bit of sugar, let them harden, and you could decorate cakes with that. So it's kind of nice. There's a lot of things we could do. But I'll get off on a squirrel trail, so let's go back to the vinegar. So we're going to fill it again, like I said, about halfway, maybe a little bit more, just like that. And then we're going to take our white wine vinegar and pour it pretty much to the top. Make sure you can see this. Haven't done a whole lot of videos yet, so hopefully you'll like this one. And if you do, send me a message at the end of this video, and you could be put on a list for more to come. So there we go. We're about at the top, and now we want to cover it. So covering your jars, most canning jars come with the metal lid. We don't want to put a metal lid on top of vinegar, because what will happen is the vinegar will corrode the metal. Even if it's a short term, only about a week or so, it'll still corrode it and get it all nasty and rusty in there, and then that'll go into your vinegar. We don't want that. So what we do want is a plastic lid, just like this one. And for some reason, I misplaced the lid. So what we're going to do instead is, I have a piece of parchment paper. You can use parchment paper, or you can use some plastic wrap, whatever you like. Just something that's a barrier between the vinegar and your lid. So I'm going to close this nice and tight. Get it on there nice and tight. And then you could shake it. And you could label this. Put a label on it, write on the lid, whatever you want to do, today's date. And then shake it every day. Leave it somewhere, like on the kitchen counter, somewhere you're going to see it, because you don't want to forget about it. And check it each day, you know, to make sure the flowers are under the vinegar. You can open it if you need to. And after about a week to 2 weeks, you can strain it out. So depending on how soon you need it. I might only wait a week on that other one because it sure is pretty. So that is the violet vinegar. And we'll leave that. And then the next one I'm going to go on to is a wild weed spring vinegar. I have an herbal CSA that I do, and each quarter I make up a basket of about 6 products, and they're usually only for the CSA members. So I'm going to make a spring vinegar. They do like the vinegars that I make, and sometimes I'll make them into a shrub, which is just a fermented, sugary, syrupy vinegar that you can use in cocktails or without cocktails. Of course, you could use it in water or in sparkling water, club soda, and all kinds of things like that. So we're just going to make a plain apple cider vinegar, spring vinegar. So I'm using quart jars here for this, and again, make sure your jars are clean. And I wanted to tell you a little bit all the wild weeds that we're using. I went out and picked these this morning. I've already rinsed them and drained them, and we have a few different things in here. Some you'll know, and some you probably won't know. So first, I want to talk about cleavers. As you can see, they're all stuck together. Cleavers, they cleave to each other. They cleave to you, stick to you. It's kind of like Velcro. But these are fabulous for the lymphatic system. And they have a lot of fluid inside. They're not really good on their own to eat because, again, they have that textural thing. They're kind of sticky. So I like to infuse these in vinegar or cook them or make a tincture with them. And I'm not going to sit there and chop every single thing up, but I am going to break it up. I'm just going to tear these up in pieces. And most of you will have these growing right now. And if you notice on one of the plants, see if I can get that out there. Not sure you'll be able to see that from there. They have leaves that are whirled around the stem. So they grow around the stem, and they're usually about 6 leaves that grow all the way around. But right now you'll see these in the garden. And again, just feel it. You'll feel the stickiness to it. And you can grab some out. You could juice them, put them in your smoothie, make a vinegar, make a tincture, which we'll talk about more of those another time. Let's see, we'll break these up a little bit more. I like cleavers. All right. I'm dividing them up between 2 jars in case you can't see that, because I need a lot. So I want to make sure I have at least 2 quarts. Okay, next we have yellow dock. So yellow dock comes up almost all year long. I want to show you some of the leaves. This one is like the wavy curly dock, and you can see that the leaf is quite wavy. Sometimes it'll have as it gets older, a red rib right down the middle. And these grow on the ground, usually in areas that are high in nitrogen, in the edges of fields, in our horse field. And I did not pick these though where the horse was going to the bathroom and stuff like that, but that's usually where you find them, where there's a lot of nitrogen. So these leaves usually grow in like a basil rosette pattern on the ground, and they are a bitter herb. They can be confused with a couple other plants, but we'll talk more on that another time. But they are a bitter herb. They're good for the liver. Like I said before, everything that grows in the spring pretty much is good for the liver, the lymphatic system, urinary system. If you were to dig up this root, a lot of people do use the root for yellow dock, and the root is yellow. So sometimes they say things that are yellow, they can be good for the urinary tract, good for the liver. You can use the root and you can cut it up and cook it, or make a tincture again for it. The leaves, again, you can eat those in a salad or in the vinegar. You can cook these up. They are bitter, so you want to do a little bit at a time just to see how your body reacts to it. Too much of it could cause a laxative effect, so start off light. And again, bitter, but they're kind of mild when they're young like this. I like them. So we're going to cut these up and just tear them up and put them in our jars here. Another thing you can do with yellow dock is in the fall and in the winter they have seeds, lots and lots of seeds, and you could collect those seeds and make a flour out of them. Yep, free flower, free weeds, free food. So we'll put those in there. The next one I'm going to talk about is my absolute favorite wild weed in the world, is chickweed. Chickweed comes out in the spring and in the fall when the weather is a little bit cooler. It grows low to the ground. It's in the garden areas. It could be under the trees. It's very shallow rooted, and it looks kind of like a vine, but it's not. It usually grows in clumps, as you see here. And if you look at the plant, it has somewhat heart-shaped leaves, a little bit of spade-like leaves, heart-shaped, spade-like. They're opposite leaves, and a lot of times there'll be a little flower. I have a number of flowers, but they have a flower, white flower on the edge, and the flower appears to have 10 petals, but it really only has 5, and they have like a little divided thing notch on the end of each pair. So it's very juicy, and if you were to break it up and squish it up, it's really juicy and full of liquid. So chickweed, again, good for the lymphatic system, good for the liver, good for the urinary tract, great for weight loss. It's delicious. It tastes like spinach. So this one, yes, eat it plentiful. Daily, if you like, you could juice it. My favorite thing to do with chickweed is to make a pesto, and I put it in a food processor, add some garlic, add some olive oil, add some Parmesan cheese. Sometimes I'll do nutritional yeast instead of Parmesan cheese. It depends on who I'm having over, if they're vegan or not. And you can add some lemon juice, salt and pepper, and sunflower seeds. Because pine nuts that are usually used in pesto cost so much money, so I use sunflower seeds in there. They have good benefit too. But chickweed is really high in vitamin C. And many of these herbs that I'm putting in here, these weeds, they are all high in vitamins and minerals. So eat your weeds. Well, almost done here. Oh, I thought I saw a flower. I was going to show it to you if I did see a flower. Okay, I think that's enough in there right now. The next one is onions. Just a pinch of onions. So yes, those wild onions that you see in the yard growing up, they are edible. You can eat them. You can even dig them up and dig up the little onions that are down underground. They'll be tiny. They'll be potent, but they're still good. So we're just going to put a pinch of onion in there. Oops, lost some. Alright. And then next we have a couple of flowers that people mix up. So, the one over here is called a henbit, and it has purple flowers. The one on my other hand, my left hand, is purple dead nettle. It has purple flowers. A lot of people see these together and they think they're the same plant. Yes, they are both edible. Henbit, though, is a little bit tastier. Purple dead nettle is kind of fuzzy, so it has a weird kind of texture thing to it. And on henbit, if you see, the leaf grows all the way around and clasps the stem. That it's called, its botanical name is Lamium amplexicaulis. Amplexicaulis means to clasp the stem, so that's one way of remembering it. And the flowers kind of look like little, I don't know, dragon heads, that's what I call it. And then purple dead nettle has the same type of flower, but the leaf is more of a heart-shaped leaf, and again, it is fuzzy. So these are just pretty. They do have some benefits, good for colds and flus, and the purple dead nettle can be used if you cut yourself and you're bleeding, you could grab a bunch of this and shove it in the wound. So, but they are good edibles, plus they're pretty. So we're going to put those in our vinegar. They're not going to change the color at all. This vinegar is going to be kind of a greenish, yellowish from the apple cider vinegar. So let's put another one in there. And then we only have a couple more. Oh, I do want to put some of those violets in there though. They're so pretty. And I didn't even show you the leaves to the violets. The leaves on the wild violets are heart-shaped, and they're very tiny, and the ones that are more cultivated can be larger and such. Alright, next we have stinging nettle. So not everybody has stinging nettle growing. I have it here in my area of Georgia because I put it here. And stinging nettle has stinging hairs all along the leaves, all along the stem, everywhere on it. Yes, I'm holding it, but I'm holding it by the bottom. Very careful with it. I'm not just grabbing it. If I was just to grab it, it definitely would sting me. So I'm very gentle with it. And there are some nettles that we have that are similar to the stinging nettle. And it's wood nettle is another one. It's not quite as stingy, if that's a word. But in these stinging hairs, they contain formic acid. Formic acid is also found in ants. So when they bite you and it stings really bad, it's from the formic acid. So the stinging nettle can do that to you too. And you're like, well, what the heck? Why do I want to have stinging nettle if it's just going to sting me like an ant bite? It's very nutritious. This little plant is very high in iron, magnesium, calcium, protein, high in protein. And it is actually an antihistamine. So the stinging hairs contain a histamine, but in your body it acts as an antihistamine. The best way to get it is to freeze dry those little stinging hairs, which we cannot do, but we can eat it, we can tincture it, we can make it tea with it. And yeah, it's going in the vinegar, but no, it's not going to sting you because I will strain this out afterwards. And you can cook the nettle, and I'm cutting it instead of tearing it so I don't sting myself. If you were to cook it like in a frying pan, as soon as you drop it in the frying pan, the heat deactivates those stinging hairs. So that's kind of cool. All right, let's put this one in here. And I got 2 more. And I gotta be careful. My fingers do get a little numb touching the stinging nettle, but as long as I'm careful with it, it doesn't get me too bad. They say when you have a relationship with your plant is nicer to you. I don't know if that's a little woo-woo or not, but anyway. Okay, one more plant. One more. This is called sheep sorrel. I'm not sure if you can see that there. Sheep sorrel grows wild. You can cultivate it. There are plenty of varieties of sorrel, so you might have a different kind. And all sorrels have like a lemony, acidic taste to them. They're really good, and they're very sour and tart, so it adds a nice taste to the vinegar, and you can even add these to your salad. The one thing I will say about these, and yellow dock, I forgot to mention, that's what I wanted to mention before. The sorrels and the yellow docks, all the docks contain oxalic acid. And oxalic acid is not bad on its own for some people, for most people, but if you have problems with kidney stones and issues like that, you don't want to overdo the oxalic acid products. So like sorrel and yellow dock, you would probably just eat a little bit, don't eat a whole lot, because we don't want to contribute to any type of issues with your kidneys. We want to clean out those kidneys. All right, so we're just going to put these in. These are really tiny, so I'm just going to pop them in the jars, and then I might add a little bit more of this later. So let's put that aside for now. Bring this over here. And we have our jars. So I'm just going to kind of squish them down. I want to see where we're at. We're halfway on that one. That one could use a little bit more. So I'm going to put some more chickweed in there. Chickweed. Love it. I think I love saying it too. Okay. Then for this one, we are going to use the apple cider vinegar. So I'm just going to shake it up. If I can open it. There we go. All right. And now we're going to pour the vinegar in. Fill it up. There we go. And these herbs are not really going to swell much. You know, if we were using like roots and berries and things like that, fruit, it would probably swell up a little bit. These are not, but we do want to make sure the herbs are covered, because we're using fresh herbs. The last thing we want to do is have some mold form on top of there. So you do want to check your vinegars every day if you can. And I'm just going to squish this down. They sure are pretty, even now. Now all the herbs will lose their color in the vinegar, and then we know that all the goodness from the herbs are in the vinegar. So we're going to cover these up. Now there's another way you can do this part, and I'm just going to touch on this. So I was talking before about making the shrubs, the vinegar syrupy type shrubs. If I wanted to, with this one, I would just put on the counter as is. With this one, I could cover it with a cheesecloth or a towel or such and leave it on the counter for about 24 to 48 hours and let it collect natural yeast from the air. And that's the good bacteria, to give it a little bit of boost of more probiotics. I'm not sure yet if I'm going to do that or not, so I'm going to put both of these lids on here and we're going to shake it up. And then in a week to 2 weeks with these, I will taste them after 1 week and see if I like it. And then if I want it a little bit stronger, more herby, I'll leave it for another couple of days. If I want to, I can put it in the refrigerator after about 2 days of sitting on the counter and let it ferment in there for another week or so. The only problem with that, sometimes if you're not watching it, you'll forget about that vinegar in the back of the refrigerator, and then when you go to strain it, it's not going to be pretty. So, say it's about a week to 10 days from now, we would take our vinegar, get a strainer over a big bowl, and you could line it with some cheesecloth or buttered muslin and pour your vinegar through that. So it'll catch all the herbs, squeeze those herbs out into the vinegar, and then you could pour your vinegar back in this after you've cleaned it. At that point, you can just store it in the refrigerator and it'll keep for probably up to a year. You can, at that point, if you wanted to add a little bit of sweetness to it, you could take a small amount of the vinegar, heat it up, add a little bit of sugar or add a little bit of honey, pour it back in here. And then you can use these for drinking vinegars, or you can use them for salad dressings, which is the main thing that I do. Or you can even take just a tablespoon a day as a benefit for your health. And you can put it in water or do it straight. Just be careful when you do it straight. You don't want to hurt your teeth, because too much vinegar is not good for your teeth. But I like to make salad dressings, and you can do equal parts of vinegar and olive oil, or whatever type of oil that you prefer. Some people like a little bit more oil than they do vinegar. And so play around, experiment. I hope you've enjoyed this video. And after the video, you'll see all my contact information for my blog and my email. So please leave me a comment and let me know if you like this, and share it freely with your friends. Thank you. Bye.